Hello from the beanbag and welcome to today's Daily Encouragement with Naomi. Thanks for joining me. So good to have you here in this Christmas season. Getting a little bit excited about Christmas. I love Christmas. Do you love Christmas? Today I'm going to chat about the beauty of the journey, because God can take anything, turn it around and produce beauty out of it. Right, let's do this. Now, there's quite a well-known scripture in Romans 8:28. If you have grown up around the church or spent a lot of time listening to preachers and things like that, you probably will know this scripture. And we're going to look at that today, just in relation to the beauty of our journey. We're going to read a couple of verses around it, but each side of it, just to get a better picture. And also because I was just reading just before, and if I had time, I'd read this whole chapter to you, but that would probably be incredibly boring. So we're just going to explore a few chapters in and around it. So let's start at verse 24. The Spirit himself pleads with God for us in groans that words cannot express. And God, who sees into our hearts, knows what the thought of the Spirit is, because the Spirit pleads with God on behalf of his people in accordance with his will. Man, that's so cool. Right, verse 28 is our main focus verse. We know that in all things God works for good with those who love him, those whom he has called according to his purpose. Those whom God had already chosen, he also set apart to become like his Son, so that the Son would be first among many believers. And so those whom God set apart, he called, and those he called, he put right with himself, and he shared his glory with them. Yeah, some amazing scriptures we just read right there. And when we frame it against our journey and what God is doing in our life and what has happened in our life and where our life is going, no matter what our life has looked like up until now, what it looks like presently and what it may look like in the future, we can walk through it with the assurance that God will use it for his glory, and that he works for the good of those who love him, those who have been called according to his purpose. And as we are called according to his purpose, he will work those things, the trauma, the hideousness of what your life may have been and potentially currently is. He will use that to the good of those who love him. And that is such an amazing promise, because when you have been through some of the depths that I have been through in my life, knowing that God is going to use it all for his glory and for his purposes, and in the end for my good, actually. Says God works for good with those who love him, and he's always doing good things. He's creating beauty everywhere in our lives if we only open up our hearts and let him in to be able to create that beauty and to be able to work for our good, because we can have a relationship with God but yet shut off our heart completely to him. We may let him in a tiny little bit, but we can shut off most of our heart to him and not let him have access to that, and not let him do what he needs to do in our lives, because he wants for us to be the best versions of ourselves we can be. And as I said in my last video, often comes through hard times, because none of us develop character and life skills and personality and patience and endurance and all those things when life is easy. And if life is always easy, I don't believe that we would ever be people of deep character who produce and live out the fruits of the Spirit. When we're in a trial, when we're walking through hard times and we're walking through the deepest, darkest valley, that is where character is produced. That is where relationship and intimacy happen with Him. And even if you're not walking through a deepest, darkest valley where your circumstances is crazy, like your outward circumstances and like life events and that kind of stuff, you can still be walking through a deepest, darkest valley, dealing with things from the past and unresolved sin and unforgiveness and things like that. It can be a deeper, darker valley when you're dealing with heart stuff, when you're having to go back and deal with the situation that has happened. And that is where some of the most amazing refining and sanctification can happen, when it's an internal dark valley. But as we allow God into those places, and He is able to just chip at it and chip off those bits that don't belong, and as we continue to surrender to Him and give it to Him, and He is just able to work with a willing vessel, somebody who is willing to learn, somebody who is willing to be changed and set free. As we allow that, that is where the beauty comes, and that is how we can have beauty in our journey. You know, as Christians, we should be the most vibrant people on the face of this earth, because we don't give in to the ups and downs of the latest craziness that's going on in the world. When we abide in Him and we are so close to His heart, we don't get tossed around in the waves of whatever craziness is happening in the world around us. We don't let the weather of the day dictate how our day will go. We let God do that. Be encouraged today that if life looks horrendous, if it's tough, if it's been horrendous and it's been tough, know that God's got you. You are safe in His hands, and that He in all things works for good with those who love Him, those whom He has called according to His purpose. And know that if you love Him, you have been called according to His purpose, and He's going to make beauty out of your journey. Thanks so much for watching. Love you all. Bye.